My name is Ryan Green, and I'm the co-founder of a small independent video game studio called Numinous Games, and we created a project called That Dragon Cancer.
What are you doing now in Tijuana, in Mexico?
Well, I was invited here by the U.S. Consulate and some entrepreneurs to talk about video games with students. One thing that I found in my career is that my skills as a programmer and an artist applied as directly in the business and healthcare space as it did to video games. And so I've spent my life doing web applications as well as websites, as well as video games and virtual reality. And the skills that I learned within technology are the same skills that I use in all of those.
That's a very interesting point. Science and technology are needed for what you are doing now. And people is kind of afraid in general. This is not a problem just with the kids in the US. Of course, in Mexico, we have a little bit of the same problem. How do you think these things connect?
Well, I think that we use, let's see, how do I put this? I am interested in using technology and science to create art, not just entertainment. And I think a lot of times video games have been known for their entertainment value, right? Those, the things to pass the time, or things for children, or competitions, or things like that. But I'm much more interested in the interactive space, video games and virtual reality, for their power of storytelling, for allowing us to tell meaningful personal stories in the same way that film and theater and literature and poetry have done for, poetry for thousands of years and for the last 100 years in film. And so I'm very interested in seeing how we can move the conversation about interactivity forward, because we are inviting others into the spaces, into the worlds that we create. And we're showing them what's meaningful to us, and we're asking them to be visitors. And so I think it's an exciting space to create.
Do you have this idea in mind when you began working as a programmer or with this specific area before to get into the art part, or did you learn during the evolution of your career?
I think over the evolution of my career, one of the first meaningful experiences I made was a video game about my marriage and and romance or lack of romance in my marriage. And it was funny because it's not something that you would expect. And especially with That Dragon Cancer, which deals with the cancer of my son, especially with That Dragon Cancer, which deals with the loss of my third son, Joel, to brain cancer. That was something that certainly people thought, well, you can't make a video game about this. And for me, I found it very appropriate to make a video game about it, because play was how I interacted with my son. It's how I connected with him. As well as this interactive space are a place that you can invite people into. And so I realized that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one making meaningful video games. Independent video games, which are like in the same way as independent filmmakers, are telling stories that are more meaningful and personal and autobiographical. And so in the last few years, there's been a rise of autobiographical type games that deal with personal struggles, like as in mental health and sickness and relationships and all those things that you find in other artistic mediums.